want to remind everybody to take a look at the Women in Drones webpage because we have the Women to Watch going on right now. Definitely want to voice your opinion in there because there, like we said, so many amazing people in the industry. We have Susanne Sonpon and Eileen Venn. They are with MTI Drones, and I will post their information. But Eileen and Suzanne, we are so lucky to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. We're really excited to just talk a little bit about repairs and drone issues maybe you've come across. Suzanne is the expert. She, does all the repairs. We have a contract with the New York State Troopers, and they call us for the repairs and for troubleshooting. So we've had that for a little over a year. So we've heard a lot of different things, but we still get stumped sometimes. So you might have a question for us, and if we don't know the answer, we will get it for you, because we do have direct contact with the DJI Repair Center in China and in California. So we can always help that way as well. So we're going to this is our presentation. Like I said, MTI Drones, mechanical testing. We're actually a construction company at our core. That's how we've been in business since 1967. In 2018, we got into drones because we really needed them for our own business to do thermal and building envelope scanning. So we went and we're looking around locally for drone companies to help us to purchase enterprise products. And we really had struggled to find it. So we contacted DJI directly, and they were looking for construction vertical partners to become dealers. So at that point, we decided to become a dealer and repair center. So here we are today. So I'm the owner. And like I said, in construction, I'm in a group, National Association of Women for Construction, and we promote women getting ahead in the construction industry. And I think that's exactly what Women in Drones is. And I'm very impressed by this organization and excited to be a part of it. Suzanne, she goes to a local college. She's pursuing her master's, and she holds a BS in emergency preparedness, home security, and cybersecurity and criminal justice. And she's getting her master's right now while she works full time for us. So she's pretty impressive, and she's going to have a lot that she's going to be able to share with you. She also created an error code sheet, DJI error code. Believe it or not, we searched high and low for this. We asked DJI if they had one. They didn't have one they could share. So I asked her, I said, would you mind building one of those? Because I think that would benefit not only us internally, but it would benefit our customers and our clients. So she built one of those. It's 26 pages long, and you can find that link. We'll share that link with you guys on our website. And I'll let Suzanne start. And if you have any questions throughout, just feel free to ask.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm just going to hop right in here and talk about our most common drones that we repair. So it is a Phantom 4 Pro, Matrice 210, and Mavic Pro. These drones specifically because they're the Phantom and the Mavic are consumer level drones. So they're very popular on the market, and also they're not in warranty anymore. So we're more likely to get these type of repairs over any of the newer drones because they're not covered under care refresh anymore. And it's hard to source parts for these from DJI anymore. And the Matrice 210 is a very popular enterprise drone, and thus is prone to a lot of accidents because it's a very heavily used drone. It's a heavy duty drone. It can crash a lot. The most broken parts is the gimbal and camera unit, which I have an example to show everyone. This one's actually broken. Like you can see, it's bent. But this is the money maker in any drone, the gimbal camera unit. So it's the most expensive part, but also the most sensitive. We get a lot of broken off gimbals. Some are completely severed. There's usually issues with the motors being overloaded from crashing and just lingering at a bad angle for too long, or just water damage. We also get a lot of arm repairs, which I do have. We get a lot of arms and motor repairs. Here is one of the arms we have. This is an enterprise level arm. This is for the Inspire 2. And this is the Inspire 2 motor. Can you see this? I know my background's interfering. This is a motor from a Mavic Pro and an arm for a Mavic Pro. So we get a lot of these repairs. Sometimes they're just completely broken off. Like this one was broken off at the joint, so it broke the case. I mean, the shell. some are just water damage or something got caught in the motor or complete like no arm. They'll come in and have a drone with no arm on it. Also, a lot of drones suffer from software issues, and they could range from firmware updates, calibration, up until a mainboard issue that's affecting the way the software is reading the drone and its errors. So segue into DJI errors. The most common errors we see is the camera sensor error and the gimbal motor overloaded. Those are, I would say, the top two error codes that I see the most while repairing drones, because again, the gimbal is pretty sensitive and it's the most expensive. So of course, that's the part that's most broken. The camera sensor error is usually related to a hardware issue, the gimbal motor error as well. But the gimbal motor error can be, I want to say, if you get to your drone in time and fix the issue that's going on. Sometimes people forget to take off their gimbal protection, which could burn out the motor. And sometimes people crash their drones and it flips upside down and the gimbal is still going and trying to correct. So it burns out the motor. So if you can flip your drone in time, restart it, do a calibration, sometimes it'll go back to normal. Another frequent issue that I've seen is landing gear. And this is pretty specific to the Inspire 2 series. I have a part to show. This part controls the lowering and rising mechanism on the Inspire 2. It has to lower and raise the landing gear in order to fly. And a lot of the times, what I see is that sometimes it just doesn't respond to the controller and people have to manually raise and lower their landing gear, or it half does it. Sometimes it comes halfway down and they're trying to catch their drone. And sometimes it just doesn't do anything. Like you click the exit travel mode button and does nothing. So we replace it and they're good to go. And lastly, we get a lot of vision sensor errors because people are not used to the software. It's not really user friendly or easy to find if you're not looking for it. DJI has this software called Assistant 2, which helps you calibrate your software and calibrate your sensors. So we get a lot of those which is pretty easy to solve. The bigger drones come with calibration boards where you can use the software and do it yourself, but some people aren't aware. Or sometimes the vision sensor error could be coming from a crash because the gimbal and vision sensors are usually connected. So if something is affecting one, it's usually affecting the other. And lastly, at this point, you're probably wondering, what can I do to mitigate some of these issues from happening to me? So for batteries, we see a lot of people who suffer from battery issues. The batteries just stop working or cell is damaged. So you're supposed to cycle your batteries from every couple months, just so that they go through their cycle correctly. So it has to be fully charged, then discharged. And when you store your batteries, it should be about at 50%, so they're not just draining completely in storage. You're supposed to update your firmware pretty regularly. If you have a newer drone, they release firmware updates pretty frequently. As for the Mavic 2 Enterprise Advanced, that we've updated a couple times since we've gotten it. The older drones, not so much. After it becomes end of life, that's not a big worry. But for people who do have the newer drones, the firmware updates usually solve some types of bugs that if you're experiencing an error, a firmware update can knock that right out because other people probably complained about that. Safe storage, it's important to store your aircraft somewhere non-magnetic because electromagnetic interference can happen and affect your main board and damage the electronic components of your drone. And visual inspections. It's very important to complete a visual inspection before you fly your drone because it's the difference between a chipped propeller and a $500 repair because you flew without noticing that propeller was broken. So it's important to check the motors, check your do a gimbal check. Just make sure everything is good before flying and good after flying because something could have happened mid-flight. For example, we were flying, a twig fell into the propellers as we were flying, which damaged the propeller. That could happen to you, so it's always important to check that out before you fly.
One thing too, Suzanne, I just want to add is a lot of times we'll get customers that they're like, oh, can you repair my drone? And we ask, one of the questions we ask is there water damage? And a lot of times people like lie and say, oh no, it wasn't water damage. And then Suzanne gets it and there's actually something she can look at inside the drone to tell if it's been water damage. Am I right? Am I correct, Suzanne?
Yes, a lot of people try to say they didn't drown their drones, they didn't encounter water or fell into a lake when they were flying it, but there are water activation stickers inside your drones, all the main components, the main board, the gimbal, not the vision sensors, but the downward sensors, anything that's really close to the main components is gonna have a water activation sticker. And I can just tell, like, if it's super red, I already know what happened. It was at the bottom of the lake. At one time, someone crashed their drone into a lake and put rice in it and brought it here and thought we would not notice that it was water damaged.
So it is interesting what people will say, but yeah, water damage too. I mean, it's pretty much done once you land it in water. I think there's been one that slightly water damaged that Suzanne's fixed, but normally we tell people like, or it's just going to cost you a fortune to fix. And sometimes too, with the cheaper drones, like if you look at a mini for $500 or $600 and the camera breaks, you almost just want to see if you could trade it in, get $100 for it and buy another one, to be honest with you, because all the cost, to Suzanne's point, is in those cameras and those gimbals. So just keep that in mind too. So you know somebody's not pulling your leg when you might send it to somebody else and get it repaired, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of money. Well, it will be if the camera's damaged. Hands down, it's a lot of money. The motor's not so much on the side, believe it or not.
Yeah, the gimbals and cameras are always going to be the most expensive repair because the price is coming from DJI directly, and we all buy the drones for the camera, the clarity, the resolution. So in that retrospect, you should expect that to cost a bit. So that's our presentation. Do we have any questions about anything repairs wise?
So I have a couple questions while we wait for people to maybe pop some questions into the chat. So one of the questions that came up previously was about downloading the log. A lot of times, they've asked for the pilot's log. Do you have a step-by-step type of thing that you would recommend on how is the easiest way to pull the log off of your DJI drone?
Well, off the top of my head, I know you can usually refresh the log to get it to the most updated point. I have not yet had to pull a log completely off the drone. Can I take that and table that? Take that question, test it out, see what I need to do?
Oh, I think that's fantastic. That's a perfect reason to reach back out to you, right? And that's what we're all about, making connections. Yes.
Someone had a question about the Care Refresh, available for the professional. So the enterprise line does have a Shield Plus, they call it, that does come with some of the drones, depending on which one you purchase. It comes with a 1-year warranty, which the warranties are pretty good on that. They're a year and they're fully covered. And you could always extend it for a year, but then all of a sudden they'll discontinue a drone and then the Shield Plus will be discontinued. So, but definitely if you are looking to buy an enterprise drone, we would highly recommend, if whoever you're buying it from, you ask for the price, because it's, anywhere from $100 to $400, but you could get a full drone replacement if you crash your drone. So it's a pretty good insurance to have.
DIY repair. We're still developing our YouTube channel. We'll be throwing some videos up there as we get better at recording them.
Yeah, we just started doing unboxing videos with the Mavic Advanced, the new one that DJI just launched. So we did our first unboxing video. So repairs is next on the list to add to our channel.
And I saw on your website, you have a blog that you're doing. And so you had a few episodes on that. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're trying to do 2 blogs a month, construction and drone related. Thermal, we're big into thermal because it relates right to our construction, which you guys I've been on this too. We've been hearing a lot about thermal imaging. So we do have a blog on that. And LiDAR, we just became a distributor for NextCore, which is an Australian LiDAR system. So we just received our RN50 and we're starting to execute projects with that. So we're super excited about the LiDAR too. And that goes right on our M600. And we'll let you know. We're going to actually post some blogs and do some pictures on that, but we have a couple blogs on LiDAR. And is there any other ones yet, Suzanne? I'm trying to think.
No, our blogs have been focused on the LiDAR anticipation of the next core because we've been so excited to get that in and test that and showcase it.
So how did you actually get started in this? Are you both Part 107 pilots, or how did you actually get started?
I got started on the construction side. And that's why I needed to bring experts in, because I'm not an expert in construction, but I know a lot of construction, and that's my background in project management, sales and marketing. And so I needed to bring people in because I knew we needed them for our business. And somebody like Suzanne, who's working in the drone lab and at SUNY Albany, the State University of New York at Albany, she's working in the drone lab, she's working in the maker space. She's demonstrating to new students the RoboMaster, which is a DJI robot product. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. So she was like fully entrenched in it. So it was like a natural progression for her to come work here while she's pursuing her master's and, take that knowledge and even learn more, because we still learn new stuff every day, right, Suzanne? I mean, it's crazy.
Every day something new with DJI drones.
You guys see, they're always coming out with new products. I was telling Desi before, we want to try to get into the FLIR, the FLIR IN 440, but there's issues with these microprocessing chips right now. So it's supply is getting tough out there when you hear it about appliances and all that stuff. Well, it's also going to affect drone manufacturers. So I think you'll see that in the next year or so if you're not already. But I know from the distributor side, we're definitely seeing that.
What is the most, I'm monitoring the chat, but I have a few of my questions, my own questions. So what is the most common repair? I know one of the ones you mentioned was that Inspire 2 and the landing gear. Yes, I've had that problem. But what is your actual most common problem that comes through?
I would say I do a ton of Mavic Pro gimbal repairs, like specifically that drone, because a lot of people, that was a really popular drone when it was first released. So there's still a ton out there in the air. And since they're not covered under the refresh program anymore, there's no way to get that for that drone. Everyone's crashing them and bringing them to us. And we have a couple good third-party sellers that tend to have them in stock. So we can turn them around pretty quickly as well. Those are our really popular ones.
And the Phantom 4, and I think Suzanne can attest to this, that thing has given us, a hell of a time trying to replace the gimbals. I've watched her struggle. She's gotten it, but those things are tough to replace. And we get those too. People want those fixed a lot as well.
Yeah, the version 1 Phantom 4s are like a second place to the Mavic Pros, because again, that was really popular because it was such a change from the Phantom 3 and the controller on that device. So the Phantom 4 is pretty popular still with the RTK version, the version 2s. But to try to get a version 1 gimbal is like pulling teeth with DJI. I don't think we can get them anymore. It is so hard to break that to customers sometimes.
So when you talk about the P4P, the original one, I was wondering about controllers. So I know as inventory gets rotated out, it's harder to find inventory and such, but how about the controllers? Are you having any issues with the controllers or anything like that?
That's an interesting question, because there was a time where I had about 3 different Phantom 4s in the office, and they were all different versions. So I had a version 1, a version 2, and like the P4 no pro, just a regular P4. And it was a problem connecting them, because then we realized they don't all run the same controller software. So we're starting to see that as a problem, but not so much since they've pretty much phased out a lot of the version 1s. It's a lot right now. But one thing I did notice is that they all carry the same batteries and they all have compatible parts. So if you have a Phantom 4 version 1 or version 2 controller, you can probably use the parts from both interchangeably. They just don't run the same software for some reason. The version 1 will not connect to a version 2 controller. Would I recommend buying and storing these parts due to dwindling supply? It really depends on your drone, because for like if you have like a Matrice 210 version 1, I would suggest to get on that because it's getting harder. But if it's like, I want to say there's good third-party sellers for the consumer drones mostly, because I've never had a problem finding a Mavic Pro anything. But if it's a version 1 M210, that's where it becomes a problem, because not even DJI is producing it. So your only options are pretty limited. I will also say that for like anything that's not like, that's past I want to say before the Inspire 2 series, is going to be really hard to track down at this point.
We haven't been able, Inspire 1, we've had a couple people bring those. Unfortunately, we just have to say, we can't fix those because we just can't get the parts. And the people are like, oh, I only bought it a year ago or a year and a half ago. It's like the technology changes quick. So if you do have enterprise products, DJI, to have some backup parts is not a bad idea.
For Mavic Pro, I'm trying to think of like what would be easy to change quickly, because for the Mavic Pro, you would have to open a whole drone up. So it really depends on your technical expertise, because you'll need a whole kit if you need to replace an arm, because you'll have to do some soldering to get the arm off the board. So that's a pretty hard question, because it basically you have to have a mobile response team ready for your drone, like your own. General turnaround time for repairs. If I have the parts in stock, about a week or two. It really depends on the drone, because we've seen a drone repair go perfectly, and then there's a new error after you fix it. It's frustrating, honestly. But usually if it's something that's cooperating with me, it's a week or two.
We've learned some hard
if we're
lessons.
not relying on DJI. We're not relying on DJI. Yes, if we're relying on the DJI part, that makes the process go a lot longer, because they're usually shipping it directly from China, and it takes 3 to 4 weeks. If that, sometimes it's been even longer.
Usually we can tell somebody though, if we know we have the part in house, we're like, we can have 2 weeks all in. And then if we do have to order the part, we're like, 4 to 5 weeks from start to finish.
I like the iFixit. I like the iFixit Repair Kit, because it seems to have a little bit of everything. It has pry tools, tweezers, bits, and a screwdriver, and like a magnetic mat, and like something to store your screws in. I like that. It's about $60. It seems to have all the basic tools you might need.
Suzanne, that's pretty important, right? The magnetic mat.
Those screws are tiny. You will lose them. I lose them all. I've lost them. It's always, you should have a magnetic mat near you, or some type of way to distinguish your screws and keep them from wandering, because they're little tiny black screws that if you lose, you'll never see them again. Average cost on a gimbal repair. I want to say for the Mavic Pro, the gimbal goes for about $250, and that's about an hour repair for us. So the average cost for that is probably around $3 something. And that's if we're keeping it on the low end, like just diagnostic. There's nothing else wrong with the drone. Is around 300, 350 maybe.
So if
the
someone
smaller
had
drones,
a repair, So if somebody had a repair that was needed to be done, do they contact you and then box it up and ship it to you? Is that traditional how you would do it? You send out a ticket to have it picked up? How does that work for you?
people have done it in all types of way. We have a repair ticket online, so some people call and just make sure they're doing it right. Some people, I've just walked into the office and someone just sent their drone in because they read up about us on the website and just attached their information to the box. Sometimes people are in the area and they saw us on the website, on Google, and they was like, oh, we just wanted to stop by and see what this was about. Can we leave our drone here? Can you take a look at it? So we do have a mail-in process. You have a repair ticket, you print it out, fill out your information, send in your drone with batteries, a controller, and propellers, just because for certain models, we don't have the controller and battery for that. And we send it in, we give them an email when it arrives, of how it arrived, the pictures, the equipment, and then we go through the diagnostic process, which we will then give them a quote.
And then after it's fixed too, before we send it back to you, we test fly it. Suzanne test flies all of them just to make sure it's working properly. And she spends some time, because sometimes then we put it back up and then we might encounter another error code, to her point. And then we have to figure out if something else kind of got knocked out of place, other than just the gimbal.
So you have a brick and mortar location that they can actually go to as well.
Yep.
So just out of curiosity, what airspace are you in that you actually can fly?
All right, so we're pretty close to the we're not that close to the airport, but I believe we're in class D airspace.
That's the, yep.
But we do get warnings about airspace and aircrafts flying above head, because Schenectady Airport is not that far away, but far enough that we're not in their airspace.
Yeah, we don't need any special permission or anything.
Well, that's good. That's nice. Makes it convenient. So you're able to test all the equipment right there at your facility then?
Correct, yes.
Yes,
Yep.
we like to make sure that, because I've had some repairs that we thought were perfectly fine, and then the customers get them and they're not flying. So we like to make sure to document proof of function before letting it leave the office.
We send people the video of us flying it to show it working, because people might get it home, crash it again, and be like, you guys never really fixed it. Unfortunately, you know, there's some people out there, and we've had that happen a couple times. We're like, wait, we have this video, no error codes. Suzanne is excellent at documenting all this information from the beginning to the end.
Well, you can't always trust the public, right?
Right.
Yeah, you have to be able to prove it all the time. Like, yes, this worked. I send screenshots of the app and everything, like showing there is nothing wrong with your drone leaving this office. Do we offer a warranty? I wouldn't say we offer a warranty, but I always, if there is a complaint right after I repaired your drone, I do take it back and look at it, make sure, like, go through it and make sure everything is in line.
We do. We'll make it right if we can, you know, if it's
We'll
something
make it right.
to, like, you know, we're not perfect. We've had a couple we've done a lot of repairs, and we've had a couple issues, and it's been on our end, and you know what? No problem. We fix it and send it back to you and all that.
And we're always happy to take a second look if the customer doesn't feel if the repair was good enough. We are always happy to take a second look.
Can I ask you a quick question about your repair documentation? When you do something like that, do you get into functionality of imagery and metadata? I ask this because I've had equipment repaired, and when I got it back, it was interestingly enough that the metadata was wrong. It was dating images incorrectly. Is that something you check also?
That is not something I check, honestly, and thank you for bringing that up, because now I have to add that to our workflow to take a look at. We don't really handle cameras in detail. Like, we're hardware people. If it's fixed, if it's broken, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
But with cameras, like with cameras, we try to send them away if it's something like that directly to DJI, because we feel like they're better equipped to handle issues like that.
Well, maybe not so. I've gotten equipment directly back from DJI that is, you know, and you know as well as I do, that new drone you get from DJI is not a new
refurbished
drone, right?
Refurbished.
I've gotten equipment back that looks brand new, and I'll go out and take it out on a job, and it'll have, you know, metadata in the image that says I took that picture in 2018. What?
Yeah, they definitely do that. I've seen a lot of their new drones, and it's just like they were just too lazy to seem to go through and fixing it themselves.
They've even flashed some of our main boards wrong, correct, Suzanne? Like we sent them our version 1 M210 because we can't get parts for it, but yet they still have parts, but they won't give us any, and they flashed it wrong. So
we're an Inspire too.
Yeah.
We don't repair other brands. We are trying to reach out to these other brands that are introducing their drones to the market to see if they would be interested in working with us and gaining repair knowledge about their equipment, but they're slow to manufacture. So I expect it's going to be slow on that end to get repairs information from them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too, they get nervous because it's proprietary. They feel like these smaller drone companies, maybe I'll say like a Teal or a Brink. So we've reached out to them and talked to them about it, and nobody's really on board. But I think like even like a Sky Deal, once these guys get out there in the masses, they're not going to be able to do all the repairs in house. They're going to need repair centers around the United States and distributors. They think they can do it all on their own, but there's a reason why like car companies have distributors. So because they can't, Chevy can't go sell to everybody, and that's what DJI kind of realized is they can't sell to everybody, so they need distributors. And I think some of these other ones are a little slower to realize that.
We do sell new DJI drones, and we don't have the Mavic S2 in stock, but we can get it.
We do focus more on the enterprise side. That's what we're the authorized distributor for the enterprise drones, but we have access to the consumer stuff. We've shied away from it a little bit. The profit margins are really tough on the consumer side. It's really tough to compete with like an Amazon or Best Buy, which people will call you like, I bought my drone at Best Buy, and can you help me? And we'll try to help them with the repair or anything, but we can only spend so much time with them if they didn't buy the drone from us. Like if they buy the drone from us, we'll spend some time showing you how to use it, and take care of the after sales part a lot better than the big box stores. So I will say that.
I actually have not had one single DJI smart controller repair, not one. No one. The only complaint we've ever had so far about the smart controller was regarding the map. And when we sent it back to DJI, they said it was a main board issue.
Yeah, software updates, I think sometimes the troopers have called on that, Suzanne, but it's just because the guy that used it before,
they didn't know how. They're also, the reason that the troopers always have a problem with their firmware is because if they can't download it directly onto their drone, they don't want to put DJI software on governmental computers. So that's why they usually just bring it to us to do it.
Okay, so we are running just a little bit short on time. So I would like to wrap it up with maybe if you share your most unique repair.
Okay, so I had this older gentleman. He brought in, over the phone, he told me what I was going to expect. He said that there's something wrong with his Phantom 4 version 1, and that he needed like a cord or something, like a new wire. So then he comes in and tells me the story of why he needs new wire. And he tells me that what happened was he was doing a flight and his drone lost signal, like in the middle of the mountains or something like that. And he couldn't find it, and it rained for a couple of days. So he got like when he finally found the drone, like when he turned it over, it was just like pouring water out of the drone, just like a copious amount of water. So he bought a new drone, but he still wanted to see if his Phantom worked. So after a while, he let it dry off. He took the battery out, he dried it off and put a battery back in it, and it worked. And it flew. He's been flying it for years since that. So I was like, I don't know, maybe this new issue that your drone is having is related to this water damage that you just told me about. And he said, I don't think so. It's been flying since. So, and surprisingly, he was right. Like I replaced the wire. It flew again, it flew without issue, and it flew quickly. It was not superly damaged. Like I looked in there and it was like, not even the water stickers were triggered. I was so confused. But yes, once it gets wet, corrosion is on the move. That's why I was kind of like, I don't think that you want us to fix this, but he did, and it did fly. We haven't heard from him since, so I assume there's nothing wrong with that drone still.
Well, we like stories like that. So
it was a success story for once.
Yes, exactly. Well, I did post your information into the chat. So if anybody wanted to reach out, or after we finish here, they go, oh, I had other questions. Everybody is able to save the chat. So Eileen and Suzanne, I just thank you so much for sharing with us such knowledge, and everybody likes to hear about the drones and how they're repaired. And so we thank you very much for joining us. That kind of wraps it up.